My name is Diane Wallace. I'm 63 years old, a widow, and until recently, I truly believed that family was a sanctuary, a harbor from the storms of life. When my husband Frank passed away 6 years ago, I clung to that belief with everything I had left. We didn't have much, Frank and I, but we built a life filled with small joys, Sunday breakfasts, laughter over spilled coffee, and the kind of love that doesn't need to be spoken to be understood. After he died, the house felt like a mausoleum. Silent. Cold. My son David and his wife Emily offered me a room in their home in the Florida Keys. "It'll be good for you, Mom," David said, placing his hand on mine. "You won't be alone." I wanted to believe it. I needed to. At first, it felt like a blessing. I helped with the grandkids, cooked dinners, folded laundry without being asked. Emily seemed to appreciate it, smiling politely and thanking me. But something started shifting. It was so subtle, like a tide pulling back. One day I'd notice my favorite mug missing. The next, I'd find my toiletries moved. Eventually, I stopped getting included in weekend plans. Still, I told myself, it's their life. I'm just here temporarily. I swallowed my discomfort like a pill I never wanted but couldn't refuse. I have type 2 diabetes and arthritis. Not the end of the world, but enough to make life complicated without medication. Insulin, metformin, blood pressure pills, a handful of capsules every morning. I'd managed it myself for years. But David thought I shouldn't worry about logistics anymore. So I let Emily handle my prescriptions and finances. She set up the joint account, said it would make things smoother. "Just tell me what you need, Diane," she'd say. Always Diane. Never Mom. Weeks passed. Then months. I began to feel like furniture. Useful but inanimate. I didn't want to complain. I didn't want to be a burden. I came from a generation that equated silence with strength. But inside, I was beginning to unravel. One afternoon, I noticed my pill organizer was empty. I asked Emily if she'd refilled my prescriptions. She didn't look up from her phone. "Oh, I forgot. We'll do it after the trip." I blinked. "What trip?" She glanced at me like I was intruding on a secret. "The cruise. The family cruise. 7 days. We leave tomorrow." My stomach turned. I hadn't been told. Not invited. Not even asked if I'd be okay on my own. Did something happen? "Am I not coming?" I asked, voice trembling despite myself. Emily sighed, finally putting down her phone. "Look, Diane, cruises aren't really ideal for someone with your medical needs. And we need a break. We've been doing a lot." "Doing a lot?" I bit my tongue. But when I got to my room, I closed the door and cried. Not because I wasn't going, but because they didn't think I should know. Because my medication was less important than a luxury trip. Because I was starting to feel like a ghost in a house I helped build. Out of instinct, I checked Facebook. And there it was. A photo of Emily and David on the deck of a cruise ship. The kids grinning in matching sunglasses. Hashtags. Hashtag family first, hashtag well-deserved break, hashtag cruise life. I felt nauseous. I opened my banking app, something I hadn't done in weeks. I trusted Emily, but I needed to know. The screen loaded. The joint account balance was $11.76. I scrolled through the transactions. Cruise deposit. Spa reservations. Onboard dining. Excursions. Every charge was theirs. Every dollar was mine. My hands trembled. My breath came short. I sat down before I could fall. I felt a wave of something I hadn't felt in years. Not grief. Not disappointment. Rage. Not the kind that burns hot and fades fast. The quiet, steady kind. The kind that simmers until it boils over. They had used my medication budget. My security. My health. To fund a vacation I wasn't even allowed to know about. And they left me here, alone, sick and invisible. I reached for the phone. Not to call them. Not to beg. To call the bank. Because something inside me had woken up. And it wasn't going back to sleep. The night after they left, I could barely sleep. My body ached. But it wasn't just physical. It was the ache of betrayal. I lay awake listening to the fan hum in the ceiling, replaying everything. Every time Emily called me Diane like I was a stranger, every time David avoided eye contact when I asked too many questions. All the signs had been there. I just didn't want to believe them. By morning, I was dizzy. My fingers tingled. My vision blurred slightly when I stood up. I knew the symptoms. My blood sugar was crashing. I reached for the glucose tablets I kept by the bed. One left. I sucked on it slowly, like it was the last lifeboat on a sinking ship. After regaining some strength, I got dressed and walked to the pharmacy down the road. I knew the pharmacist well, Marcus, a kind man in his 40s who always smiled when I came in. "Morning, Diane," he greeted me. "I'm here for my refill," I said. He frowned, typing on the computer. Then he looked up with an apologetic smile. "I'm sorry, your prescription refill was canceled yesterday. Says there were insufficient funds and the insurance link was removed." I felt a heat rise to my face. "Can I pay for it out of pocket?" He looked hesitant. "It's over $200 for the full set." "Are you sure?" I forced a smile. "I'll have to come back." I didn't even have $200 anymore. That's when I knew this wasn't just about a forgotten pill box or a missed refill. This was theft. And it was deliberate. I walked home slowly, like I was carrying bricks in my chest. When I got inside, I sat at the kitchen table and opened my laptop. I typed in the name of our bank and pulled up the full transaction history. The numbers made my stomach churn. $3,200 cruise line deposit. $450 premium excursion package. $780 spa and wellness package. $270 kids onboard activity package. $600 fine dining reservations. There were dozens more, all within 2 weeks. All from the joint account. All without a word. That account had been my safety net. The money Frank and I had saved. The cushion that let me breathe. Gone. I picked up the phone and called the bank. The customer service agent was polite, patient. I asked to revoke all third-party access. I explained what had happened. She asked if there had been authorization. "Yes," I said quietly. But that was before I knew what they would do. I had to answer security questions, verify my ID, and within an hour, the joint account was closed. My Social Security and pension deposits were redirected to a new account. Every debit card was canceled. Every auto payment blocked. Then I called my lawyer, Janet, an old friend of Frank's. I hadn't spoken to her in years. "You sound different, Diane," she said. "I feel different," I replied. "I need to make some changes." She didn't ask questions. She just listened. And helped. By sunset, I was exhausted. But not from defeat. From taking back control. That night, as I sat on the porch with a blanket around my shoulders, I checked my phone. More photos. More hashtags. Hashtag grateful heart, hashtag making memories, hashtag best life. I stared at the smiling faces. My grandkids. My son. My daughter-in-law and designer sunglasses. I had to remind myself, those smiles were built on the back of my pain. My medicine. My trust. But this wasn't the end of the story. It was just the first receipt. And I was going to collect every last one. They returned on a Sunday. I knew the moment they pulled into the driveway. The laughter, the loud pop of car doors, the wheels of a suitcase scraping against the pavement like nails on my spine. I sat at the kitchen table, calm, quiet, my hands wrapped around a warm cup of tea as if that small circle of heat could anchor me. Emily walked in first, still wearing her sun hat. Her cheeks were bronzed, her lips glossy, and her eyes darted to me with a flicker of, was it surprise? Guilt? Annoyance? David followed, looking a little less sure of himself. The kids ran past me, not saying a word. My own grandchildren. So Emily said, placing her oversized sunglasses on the counter. "You've been busy." I looked at her. Not through her. Not beneath her. At her. "I have." David glanced between us. "Mom, what's going on?" The cruise card was declined on the last day. We had to pay cash for disembarkation. And our credit score dropped. Did something happen? I took a slow sip of tea. Yes. Something happened. I reached under the table and pulled out a thin manila folder, sliding it toward David. Transaction records. The bank statement. My prescription history. And a letter from my attorney. Emily didn't touch the folder. You went behind our backs? I let out the kind of laugh that doesn't sound like laughter. You emptied my account. You used my money to fund your vacation. And you left me without medication. Behind whose back, Emily? Her voice went sharp. We let you live here, Diane. We gave you a place to stay, to eat, to sleep. You repay us by making us look like criminals. I stood. Not fast. Not with anger. With something steadier. You let me live here? I paid every utility bill for this house the last 6 months. I bought the groceries, Emily. I took care of your kids, cleaned your laundry, stayed out of your way while you lived like I didn't exist. I was not your guest. I was your silent employee. David stepped forward, defensive. Mom, don't do this. You're blowing everything out of proportion. We didn't mean to hurt you. I turned to him, the son I had once held in my arms, the boy who used to cry when he scraped his knees. Then why didn't you even tell me you were going? He didn't answer. Emily snapped. You're acting like a victim. This is what narcissists do when they don't get their way. I stared at her, and in that moment, the years washed away. I was not old. I was not dependent. I was a woman, a human being, a mother who had given everything. I almost passed out from low blood sugar, I said softly. I walked to the pharmacy and was told my prescriptions were canceled. I didn't have enough money to buy medicine. And all the while, you were posting poolside pictures with captions about gratitude. The silence that followed wasn't quiet. It roared. I'm leaving, I said finally. I've made arrangements. Emily scoffed. Where will you go? You think you'll find a better place than here? I smiled. For the first time in a long time, it reached my eyes. Yes, because it will be mine. And I won't have to beg for my dignity. David looked stricken. You're serious? I nodded. Completely. They didn't understand. They thought this was temporary. They thought I would cool off, come back with apologies. They didn't realize the version of me who would do that no longer existed. I spent the night packing my things. Not many, just clothes, keepsakes, photos of Frank. The rest could stay. I didn't want memories soaked in resentment. The next morning, I ordered a car. As I stepped outside, Emily stood at the door with her arms crossed. I hope you're happy. I paused at the steps. Not yet, I said. But I will be. And with that, I closed the door on a chapter one should have ended long ago. The car smelled of leather and citrus. As it pulled away from the house I had once called home, I didn't look back. There was no need. I wasn't leaving behind anything I still wanted to hold on to. The driver, a young man named Marco, chatted kindly during the ride. I smiled when appropriate, but my mind was elsewhere, floating in memories and plans, grief and clarity. I had no intention of living the rest of my life as someone's burden. I had been a wife, a teacher, a mother. And now, I would be something I hadn't been in decades, free. When we arrived at the residence, a quiet, palm-shaded assisted living community just outside Key Largo, it didn't feel like an institution. It felt like a resort. Not extravagant, but peaceful. Clean. Private. Respectful. Janet had helped set everything up. She met me there with a warm hug and a stack of paperwork. Welcome home, she said simply. Home. That word hadn't felt real in years. I was shown to a sunlit apartment with white curtains that danced in the breeze, a small balcony overlooking the water, and a little reading nook by the window. There was a kitchenette, a walk-in shower, and best of all, silence. The peaceful kind. That evening, I sat outside and watched the sun melt into the sea. A nurse brought my medication, refilled, organized, and covered through the insurance plan I'd reactivated. It took 2 days, but I felt stronger already. Physically, emotionally, spiritually. Within the week, I enrolled in a painting class, a gentle yoga group, and a memoir writing circle. For the first time in years, people asked about my story and genuinely listened. I made friends. Some had been through worse. Some had lost more. But we were all rebuilding. One woman, Eleanor, was 81 and walked with a cane. You look like someone who gave too much for too long, she said to me during a watercolor session. I laughed. How could you tell? Because I did too, she replied without looking up. We talked every afternoon after that. And while I found healing in the present, The past still tried to tug at me. David called once. Just once. His number lit up my phone like a warning sign. I let it ring. Then a voicemail, Mom. I know you're angry. We messed up. But this is over the top. Can we talk? I deleted it. Emily sent an email 2 weeks later. It was short. Cold. You really hurt the kids. Hope you're satisfied. I didn't respond. Because I was done being the one who stitched broken things while bleeding. One afternoon, I received a letter in the mail. A final invoice from the cruise line. Apparently, the remaining balance hadn't been paid. A few $1,000s. The envelope had been forwarded from their address to mine. A mistake. I wrote return to sender in black ink and dropped it off without a second thought. That evening, as I sat in the common room watching the sunset with Eleanor, she nudged me. You look lighter. I said. I stopped apologizing for surviving. She nodded slowly. That's when the healing begins. And she was right. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't broken. I was becoming. The last page of the journal I started on the day they left for their cruise reads. I gave them my silence, my patience, my love. They called me selfish for finally keeping something for myself. But I know now, dignity isn't selfish. It's sacred. And it's mine again.